Hey, it's Yesenia from Novels and Nectar. If you're new here, welcome. This is a cozy bookish corner where we talk through romance, romantasy, and whatever else I'm reading, so you can decide if a book belongs on your TBR or if you just need a quick reminder of what happened before you dive into the next installment. In each episode, I'll share a quick review, then a spoiler-heavy summary for those of you who've already read the book and just want a refresher. I will always keep the review lighter on spoilers, and I will give you a very clear warning before we move into the summary. All right, now let's get into today's book.
Hey, welcome back. So today we're talking about Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This is a romantasy slow burn that is told from the first-person point of view from Odessa, our main female character's point of view. Spice level-wise, I gave this a 2 out of 5. It's very, very slow burn. If you want to see any of the spicy chapters, I have those up on my blog. Some key content warnings include death by suicide, animal death, illness, emotional abuse, and violence. Okay, so with that in mind, let's jump into the review. This book had me hooked from the beginning. It opens with a scene that sets the tone for this mysterious world that Perry has crafted. The world building, it feels really rich and layered, but also fresh and with some familiarity. That being said, there were moments in the middle where I found myself a little bit overwhelmed trying to keep track of all of the moving pieces. This is the kind of story where you can tell that every detail matters, but it can also feel like it's a lot to juggle at times. There is a lot of world building and character building that happens in the beginning and in the middle of the story. I did really enjoy the relationship between Odessa and the Guardian. I didn't quite understand their relationship or know where it was going until things begin to unravel. But I did know that I liked the Guardian, as he was always very protective of her. And he has this really fun, witty banter that had me just chuckling here and there. And I also appreciated the subtle physical cues and quiet and meaningful moments that were conveyed with his emotions. You can definitely tell that there is more to him than meets the eye. Around the 70% mark, the pace does begin to pick up and the story really begins to take its stride. You start to get a lot of twists and a lot of secrets begin to unravel. And just when you think you have a handle on where all of the things are headed, we get this huge surprise and it keeps you on your toes right up until the final page. By the end, I felt like everything that had been slowly simmering beneath the surface finally boils over, but in a really good way. Perry did a great job bringing all of the pieces together so far. Our main characters are very nice and complex, and although we learn a lot, I'm still not really sure how everything is going to play out. As the first book in a series, Shield of Sparrows does do a solid job of layering the foundation for what is clearly going to be this epic, multi-layered saga. So if you're a fan of complex world building and you're looking for a slow burn, high-stakes fantasy, this is one that you might enjoy picking up. I'm already looking forward to seeing where Odessa's journey is going to take us and how Ransom's role will continue to play into what is to come. Okay, so here is your spoiler warning. From here on out, I'm going to go ahead and walk through a full summary. There are some big reveals, so if you have not read it and you want to go in blind, this is your moment to pause here. And if you're okay with spoilers, we're going to go ahead and be moving on. The story opens in Quentis, where Princess Odessa Cross has spent most of her life being overlooked. Her sister May is the one their father has prepared for court. May is meant to marry into Tura to satisfy a peace accord called the Shield of Sparrows, and she has been trained for this secret mission that her father intends to use against the Turans her whole life. When we meet Odessa, she is alone on a cliff above the sea, standing at the edge and thinking about jumping. The pool of the water below feels like the only choice that belongs to her. Odessa's fiancé, Banner, ends up finding her there. Banner is the general of Quentis's forces, and he hates the Turan's infamous monster hunter, known only as the Guardian. Banner blames the Guardian for the death of his brother, because the grief from that loss eventually led to Banner's mother dying from suicide. Banner reminds Odessa about the royal meeting later that day and leaves her on the cliff. Odessa jumps anyway, diving into the sea as a private act of freedom. Odessa ends up sneaking back into the palace through the East Wing Gallery, filled with gruesome artwork of the Crux, massive eagle-like creatures that migrate every few decades and slaughter the people. The last migration was about 30 years ago, and the scholars predict that the next one could come as soon as next spring. In the palace, Odessa crosses paths with a Voster priest. The Vosters are a religious brotherhood that uses magic as emissaries and enforcers across kingdoms. Their magic makes Odessa feel physically unwell, and when the priest uses it to pull the water from her hair into a hovering crown-like shape, she cannot interpret the message and flees. Odessa's stepmother, Margot, rushes her into proper court dressing. Odessa's natural red hair is dyed brown to hide any trace of her birth mother, and she is dressed in muted gray as she always is. The Turins are in Quintus for two connected reasons. Monsters called marrow eels have been disrupting trade routes for a year, and Quintus can no longer protect its own waters. If the shipments to other kingdoms fail, the uneasy peace could collapse into war. The second reason is May's marriage, which is supposed to keep the peace intact. In the throne room, the Turins arrive with Prince Xavier Wolf and the Guardian, who speaks on Xavier's behalf because Xavier is rumored not to talk. Odessa's father offers coin as payment for killing the marrow eels. Instead, the Guardian announces that Xavier's chosen payment is Odessa. Odessa's family protests. Banner protests. The court protests. But the Turins have already killed 7 female marrow eels, completing an ancient magical rite called the Chain of Sevens. Completing the rite binds the magic and the warrior who completes it to earn a prize of their choosing. That is why the court's outrage does not matter here. The Chain of Sevens is treated as binding law, and Quintus cannot refuse Xavier's demand without violating the magic itself. After the Turins exit, Odessa is left with her family and the Vosters. Brother Dime, the Voster emissary, insists that there is no escaping Odessa's fate. Odessa's father then reveals Odessa must now take over May's secret mission. Odessa must find a way into Alissaria, Tura's secret capital in the mountains, and send information back to Quintus. Brielle and Jocelyn, her handmaidens, will travel with her, and one of them will be sent back with any intelligence Odessa can gather. Odessa is also ordered to learn everything that she can about the Guardian and his powers. And if she has an opportunity to kill him, she is expected to do it. Before Odessa leaves Quintus, she retrieves 2 hidden personal items, a sketchbook and a necklace she found years ago. The necklace's pendant has a winged emblem set in red-orange tones, a symbol that Odessa has never been able to identify. Odessa and Xavier's marriage is formal and cold. They sign the Shield of Sparrows treaty with blood. This treaty is important to understand early because it is the reason Odessa cannot simply stab her way out of this marriage later. The treaty states that the king cannot kill his sparrow, the princess married into his kingdom, and the sparrow cannot kill the king, directly or indirectly, without both of them dying. There is no kiss. Xavier declines the celebration and leaves immediately. The Guardian stops Odessa from following and tells her she will sail at dawn. At the docks, Odessa is denied the goodbye that she most wants. Margot does not bring Odessa's 4-year-old brother, Arthi, so Odessa leaves without seeing him. On the ship, Odessa learns Brielle and Jocelyn will share quarters with her, and that she will not share any quarters with Xavier. After that, Xavier speaks to Odessa privately and reveals that he can speak, but chooses not to do so publicly. He uses silence as a tool, letting others fill the space to reveal themselves. This is one of the first moments that Odessa realizes that in Tura, power is not only about weapons. It is also about what you reveal, what you hide, and what you make other people say for you. Above deck, the Guardian's abilities begin to stand out. He swims between ships with speed and strength far beyond that of an ordinary person. A marrow eel ends up attacking the ship. The Guardian orders the women to stay below deck where it is safest, but Odessa disobeys, looking for Jocelyn, and is thrown into the sea. The Guardian saves Odessa using a harpoon line, then kills the marrow eel as it tries to attack her. Afterward, the Guardian orders Odessa to obey him. Odessa responds that she will obey when it is about safety, but otherwise she will not. The next morning, Odessa studies a dead marrow eel hanging from the mast and notices that it bleeds green, unlike the female that bled red. At first, it is just a weird detail, but it becomes one of the earliest clues that something is changing in the monsters. Odessa begins to ask questions, but the Guardian refuses to answer her. Odessa calls the Guardian one of the monsters in the water himself. He replies that not all monsters are born from the gods, and some are made. When they finally reach Tura, the Guardian gives Odessa a dagger and begins training her. He refuses to share his name, saying that she must earn it, and he makes it clear that he does not trust her. Odessa continues to travel with the Turan caravan throughout the forest. They head through camps and different towns, and there she meets Tilia, who helps manage supplies. Odessa hears talk of King Ramsay Wolf forming a militia separate from his royal army. She suspects that this militia is tied to preparing for the Crux migration. She tries to repeatedly get information about Alisaria and repeatedly meets a wall of silence. The Guardian trains Odessa brutally. Odessa improves, but she struggles with fear and instinctively retreats in fights. During a thunderstorm, the Guardian forces her to keep training in the rain until she learns to stand her ground. Xavier leaves on business, and Odessa remains with the caravan. Then one night, monsters begin to circle the camp, including bear wolves, and a grazier attacks. The Guardian returns in time to kill it. Odessa witnesses a tender moment between Tilia and the Guardian and assumes that it might be romantic. At this point, the caravan changes course and stops in Tro, a town where people live in homes built into trees. Odessa is lodged in a treehouse, but Odessa finds that the Guardian continues to repeatedly remove the ladder at night and return it in the morning, controlling her movement without explanation. Here, Odessa meets Kathleen, the town librarian, who is warm and kind. Odessa begins borrowing books, including a journal by Samuel Hay about time spent in Quintus. Samuel's writing accuses Odessa's father of attempted assassinations and even implicates him in Odessa's mother's death. Odessa does not believe it, but the accusations reshape how she sees her father's power. King Ramsay and the soldiers eventually arrive in Tro searching for his son. This is also where we start to see King Ramsay's true side. His men end up burning Kathleen's library and its books, which turn the visit into more than just a search. It becomes intimidation. When the soldiers leave, Odessa returns to her treehouse to find that her belongings have been ransacked. She saves what matters most by hiding it high, including her journal and the necklace. The Guardian notices and praises her caution. As time passes, they continue with more training. We meet a child named Evangeline, called Evie, who watches the Guardian and Odessa train with familiarity, and this surprises Odessa. When Xavier arrives in Tro, Odessa overhears Evie call him father. Xavier later speaks to Odessa privately and confirms that Evie is his daughter, and that very few people know that. Evie's mother died in childbirth. As Odessa spends more time with Evie, she begins to grow more attached to her. Odessa continues trying to learn more about Alisaria, but keeps finding nothing. At this point, Odessa has been asking direct questions about Alisaria and getting nowhere, and she starts to realize that waiting quietly is not going to work. So she decides to act on her own. With Brielle's help, she sneaks away to the nearby town of Ashmore. In Ashmore, Odessa sees the Guardian laughing with a blonde woman outside a tavern. She begins to feel jealousy and tries to ignore it. When she returns to her room at an inn that night, she finds the Guardian waiting inside, furious. Odessa refuses to be controlled and insists that she will fight her way to freedom. The Guardian points out that Odessa could have asked for permission to visit Ashmore and likely would have been granted it. She realizes that she has been making assumptions about how she is trapped here, and that some of her cage is built from fear and habit. That night, the Guardian sleeps on the floor of Odessa's room to protect her. The next day, Odessa discovers Ashmore's library has been burned. Kathleen appears and shares more information. She explains that the towns have underground tunnels meant to protect people from the Crux migration. The tunnels failed in the past because they were not deep enough, and they have since been improved. Then we hear warning bells as bear wolves begin to approach the city. Odessa and Kathleen run for shelter, but Odessa stops to help a woman being stalked, and ends up drawing the bear wolf to herself. The Guardian arrives just in time and fights, but more bear wolves appear. The blonde woman from the tavern is killed in the inn attack. Not knowing what to do, Odessa uses a crossbow to try and help the Guardian from above, as we see that he is slowly being outnumbered by the bear wolves. Odessa ends up falling from a balcony and collapsing, but survives. A bear wolf tries to attack her and is killed by the Guardian's thrown sword. Afterward, Odessa helps bury the dead. That evening, the Guardian returns drunk. He calls Odessa Sparrow, and she asks him why. He gives a brief, confusing answer. Odessa asks him about the green blood. The Guardian ends up revealing that the sickness is called Lysa, and that it makes monsters feral. From here on out, that one detail begins to connect a lot of pieces together. The green blood, the certain creatures attacking with a kind of intention, and the growing fear that something is spreading. Odessa and the Guardian leave Ashmore and ride towards Elder. She ends up having nightmares about her family and betrayal that night. At Elder, the Guardian tells Odessa that she does not have to hide who she is in Tura, or with him. This leads Odessa to finally dump her hair dye out the window and let her natural hair color return. She finally starts to settle into a routine. She spends mornings with Evie, and they both begin to become deeply attached. As time goes on, she discovers books hidden in Elder's dungeons, and begins doing more research. When the Guardian returns, he gives Odessa a sword and invites her to train. Their training continues, the tension between them growing, and Odessa feeling more conflicted because she is married to Xavier even though the marriage has never been emotionally real or consummated physically. When Xavier leaves again, Odessa overhears the Guardian comforting Evie. The Guardian invites Evie and Odessa to return to Tro to retrieve Odessa's horse. During this trip, Odessa presses the Guardian about Liza. The Guardian ends up explaining that it spreads by bite, and that it causes an increase in ferality, and that the Turans have known about it for about 4 years now. The Vosters have studied it, and at least at this point, they do not believe that the Crux are connected. This matters because everyone is already terrified of the next Crux migration, and if Liza ever touched the Crux, the consequences would be massive. Odessa realizes that the Guardian's abilities come from Liza. The Guardian ends up showing Odessa his bite scar and admits that he is infected, and that he is the only human survivor. Odessa asks him how they can stop it, but he merely says that they have to kill the infected monsters, including himself. He also reveals that he knows that Odessa was sent to assassinate him. Back in Tro, more attacks begin to occur. The High Priests use magic to siphon Liza from the Guardian's blood, temporarily easing symptoms. Odessa witnesses the Guardian in intense pain under Voster magic, and ends up following the Guardian to inspect a Tarkin den. She finds one surviving pup and refuses to let the Guardian kill it. The pup ends up bleeding red, not green, so she is allowed to keep it. Evie names it Phase. The Guardian makes Odessa vow to kill him if he ever becomes unsalvageable. She agrees to do so. The Guardian finally gives Odessa his name, Ransom. Odessa and Ransom investigate attacks in Rivali. They meet Samuel Hay, now a paperman, and Odessa recognizes him as the author of the scathing Quentis diary. Samuel admits his accusations were driven by grief and rumor. He expresses suspicion about King Ramses' militia. Because men who join do not write home, they end up disappearing. Samuel also confirms that Alisaria is real, but that entry requires a blood oath to keep its location secret. King Ramsay ends up arriving with the militia and confronts Odessa and Ransom. Ramsay identifies Odessa as the Sparrow and insists that she should be an Alisaria. Ransom claims that she cannot be trusted yet, which ends up hurting Odessa's feelings. Ramsay burns Samuel's shop and home. Odessa calls Ramsay a coward publicly, but he does not care and ends up giving Ransom a 1-month deadline to return home. Odessa and Ransom return to Elder with Samuel and his son. There, she discovers that Xavier is in an intimate encounter with Jocelyn. Seeing this, Odessa feels betrayed, not because she's in love with Xavier, but because the moment triggers a familiar pattern of being overlooked and treated as secondary. Later, we get the reveal that the entire marriage was a plot. Ransom admits the truth. The man that Odessa has been calling Prince Xavier is not the person who actually bound himself to her. Odessa is not married to Xavier. Ransom spoke the vows and used his own blood to sign the treaty while Xavier stood in place as a political stand-in. Ransom is Odessa's bound husband. He is the true prince. And this is where we learn that Xavier is actually Dre, Ransom's cousin, acting as his body double, as he has been doing for years so that Tura can protect the real heir. The truth is, most of Tura believes that Odessa married Prince Xavier, but the binding magic tied Odessa to Ransom instead. Odessa ends up sending Jocelyn home and instructs her to report back to Odessa's father that Odessa has failed and to find a way into Alisaria on his own. Odessa and Ransom's relationship continues to grow and eventually becomes physical and emotional. As time continues to pass, Odessa begins to secretly draw a map of Tura, despite maps being illegal. Samuel ends up helping correct her map and helps her expand it. But in doing so, Odessa ends up burning the copy that he has in order to protect him. The High Priest and Brother Dime end up returning. Odessa again reacts physically to Voster magic, and the High Priest's touch causes Odessa intense pain. They begin to question Odessa about her mother, but she does not know why. Later, we find that Evie goes missing briefly after trying to act like a monster hunter, but they end up finding her. And Kathleen warns that over-controlling Evie will eventually backfire. After her encounter with the Vosters, she learns that no one else can feel Voster magic the way that she can. And her and Ransom begin to suspect that monsters are drawn to her specifically. Later, a Lysa-infected human ends up attacking Odessa, and when she kills him, he bleeds green. She is shaken by this reality, and by the reality that she had to kill a person. While recovering from this, she also learns about cave ginger, a plant with healing properties, and she begins to suspect that someone is deliberately infecting humans based on an injection site rather than bite marks. Odessa confronts Luella and Kathleen, both who are bound by blood oaths. Luella admits the truth. She created an elixir meant to enhance human survival against the Crux migration. She administered it to Ransom before he was bitten. The bite activated the dormant properties, creating Lysa and transforming both Ransom and the monster. Luella reveals that an alchemist betrayed her and told King Ramsay about the elixir. Ramsay has been dosing his militia to try and recreate the Guardian. That being said, Ramsay does not know the full truth of how it works, and they all agree that this information must never become widely known. While spending time with Luella, Odessa notices the wing symbol on her research journal, a symbol that matches her own necklace. She says nothing. Ransom ends up returning and plans to return to Alisaria to confront his father. He refuses to take Odessa into danger. At this point, Odessa considers seeking help from her father because Quintus has an army. But before they can leave, King Ramsay arrives at Elder's Gates with an army. But so do Quintus' soldiers. And so does Banner. Odessa learns that Banner's fiancée is Brielle, revealing that Brielle was Banner's secret lover while Odessa was engaged to him. Jocelyn is also present, confirming that she acted as a spy for Odessa's father and fed information to Ramsay. Ramsay announces a lone Crux scout has been spotted, suggesting that the migration is coming sooner than expected. Ramsay orders the evacuation of the city and ends up finding Luella with the intention to kill her, but Odessa ends up stepping between them. But then the Crux arrives in the courtyard, and the attack happens fast and brutal. Many begin to die. Jocelyn is killed in the attack. Halston becomes injured, while Tilia tries to save him. Luella is also killed. In the scuttle, Ransom tells Odessa to find Evie and escape. Odessa runs. She ends up finding Evie but is intercepted by Banner, who intends to kill Odessa to avenge his brother. Odessa's training allows her to survive long enough for Dre to save her, but he is nearly fatally wounded. Odessa ends up carrying Evie away through the migration tunnels beneath Elder. In the tunnels, they run into Brother Dime, who finds them and gives her a horse, guiding Odessa and Evie away. He avoids touching Odessa and implies that he knows something about Odessa's mother. Afterward, Ransom ends up killing the Crux and helps collect the dead with Kathleen. Dre and Halston's fates remain uncertain. As he continues to rummage through the desolation, Ransom examines the body of the Crux that he has killed. The Crux ends up transforming into the body of a young woman with vibrant red-orange curls matching Odessa's coloring. He is shocked by this. The book ends with Odessa headed back home with Brother Dime and Evie, and Ransom setting out to find her.
All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to dive deeper into the books I talk about here, you can head over to my blog at novelsandnectar.com with a K, where I share spicy chapter lists, similar book recommendations, song pairings, and discussion questions if you want to keep the conversation going. If you are part of a book club and want ready-to-use questions and guides all in one place, you can also join the Nectar Nook, my membership where I put everything together for you in one cute, cozy space. And if you want to keep up with new episodes and new reads, be sure to hit the subscribe button and join my newsletter so you never miss a bookish update. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the next one.